Knott's Berry Farm has been a place of constant evolution. Over the decades, the park has introduced attractions that captured imaginations, pushed boundaries, and in many cases, eventually disappeared. Some were beloved classics, while others were bold experiments that reflected changing trends. This is the story of 10 more lost rides and attractions that once helped define Knott's Berry Farm. In 1989, Knott's Berry Farm introduced a ride that promised to take guests beyond the limits of traditional thrill rides and into the sky. Replacing the loop trainer in the park's Roaring Twenties section, XK1 promised guests an interactive attraction, offering what the park described as the sensation of true flight. Manufactured by Intamin, XK1 was part of a $4 million summer expansion and quickly became a highlight of the season. The ride featured a distinctive yellow central tower, surrounded by white support arms. At the end of each arm were partially enclosed gondolas, painted blue with bold yellow graphics, designed to resemble a small aircraft. Riders boarded these two-person pods and strapped in for a flight that was unlike anything else in the park at the time. As the ride began, the gondolas started to rotate around the central tower, climbing higher and faster until reaching a height of 70 feet. Inside each cockpit was a joystick, allowing riders to pivot their pod and perform aerial manoeuvres. With a tilt of the controls, the gondolas could climb, lower, and even perform full inversions, giving riders the rare chance to roll upside down high above the park. However, the flight would be short-lived in its original form. In 1991, just 2 years after opening, the ride was modified. The ability to go upside down was removed, and guests were now limited to controlling the height and tilt of their gondola without full inversion. The reasons were never officially confirmed, but speculation linked the change to an incident on a similar attraction at Kings Island. Even with its toned-down motion, XK1 remained a visually striking attraction, with its soaring arms and bright colours standing tall as the Roaring Twenties transitioned into the boardwalk. But by the end of the 1997 season, the ride was removed. Its towering structure would soon be replaced by something even taller, Supreme Scream, which opened in 1998. As the new millennium dawned, Knott's Berry Farm looked to the sky for its next thrill, and in 2001, they brought guests a ride that truly lived up to its name, VertiGo. Manufactured by S&S Worldwide, this towering sky sling attraction was an upcharge experience unlike anything the park had offered before. Installed near the boardwalk, VertiGo was part of a trio of identical rides debuting across the country that year. The attraction featured 3 massive white towers, each soaring 265 feet into the sky and arranged in a triangular configuration. Suspended in the centre was a compact triangular ride vehicle capable of seating 6 riders, 2 per side, facing outwards. What made the ride especially intense was its restraint system, a canvas chest harness and seatbelt-style straps, leaving guests feeling surprisingly unrestrained despite being securely fastened. The ride began simply enough, hoisting the vehicle a few feet off the ground. Then, without warning, it launched vertically at 50 miles per hour, rocketing skywards until the capsules soared nearly 300 feet into the air. Depending on the selected ride mode, the seats could remain upright or rotate forward up to 150 degrees mid-flight. Riders could choose between Hot Rocket, which kept them upright, Cosmic Flip, which rotated them just as the vehicle crested, and Big Bang, which inverted the seats shortly after launch. Knott's even added a 4th randomised version, dubbed Big Bang Plus, where the rotations were unpredictable, making each ride a surprise. VertiGo dominated the skyline of the park. The towering structure could sway up to 8 feet in strong winds or during operation, and its sheer height was enough to intimidate even the bravest thrill seekers. Yet despite its terrifying profile and novel design, VertiGo would have an extremely short life at the park. In early 2002, just months after Knott's installation opened, a structural failure occurred at the Cedar Point version of the ride during the off-season. While no guests were on the ride at the time, the incident raised serious safety concerns about the ride system's long-term stability. As a result, Knott quietly dismantled their version shortly after. its former plot wouldn't sit empty for long. Just a few years later, it would become the site of another S&S air-powered attraction, Scremin Swing. By the late 1980s, Knott's Berry Farm was leaning heavily into flat rides to energise its growing collection of attractions. In 1987, Fiesta Village became home to one of the most visually dynamic rides the park had ever installed, the Tampico Tumbler. Manufactured by Zera, this spinning tower ride brought thrills, vibrant colour and constant motion to a corner of the park already known for its festive atmosphere. The ride's design was both eye-catching and surprisingly intense. At the centre stood a vertical tower, around which 10 long arms were arranged like the spokes of a wheel. Each arm carried a pair of passenger cars, seating 2 riders each, meaning 40 people could experience the chaos at once. When the ride started, the entire structure lifted into the air, and each pair of cars began rotating over and under each other. What began as a gentle rotation would quickly build in speed, until the cars were whipping around with surprising force. Then, without warning, the direction would reverse, creating a disorienting and exhilarating experience. The Tampico Tumbler's striking orange colour scheme made it easy to spot from a distance, and it was often enhanced by its signature lighting package that added even more spectacle after dark. From guests walking through Fiesta Village to those watching from nearby benches, the ride was a focal point of the area. Though it never reached the fame of Knott's headline coasters, Tampico Tumbler carved out its own niche as a beloved staple. Fans praised its unique motion, its intense ride cycle, and the way it fit perfectly with the colourful Fiesta Village. It was one of those rare flat rides that managed to feel like a major attraction in its own right. After more than 15 years of operation, the Tampico Tumbler gave its final ride in 2003. Its removal created space for a new spinning attraction, La Revolution. In 1987, Knott's Berry Farm added another thrill to its ever-evolving lineup with the debut of Gran Slammer. Located in the vibrant and energetic Fiesta Village section of the park, Gran Slammer brought a kinetic energy to the area. Manufactured by Chance Rides, Gran Slammer was a falling star model, a variation of the rainbow-style attraction. At Knott's, it stood out thanks to its vivid colour scheme and a lighting package that lit up the night sky with a kaleidoscope of chasing bulbs. The ride experience was deceptively simple, but uniquely intense. Riders sat side by side on a long platform in grandstand-style seating, facing outwards. They shared a lap bar between every 2 riders, offering just enough restraint to keep guests securely in place without overly restricting their movement. The anticipation built quickly as the massive arm began to rotate. Unlike many other flat rides that spin or tilt in multiple directions, Gran Slammer kept its platform perfectly horizontal throughout the ride. As the arm rotated 360 degrees, the seating structure gently rode the arc, creating the sensation of rising and falling, riders climbing and dropping in rhythm with the motion. Gran Slammer operated for over 15 years, providing thrills to parkgoers from its opening until the beginning of the 2003 season. As the park continued to update and modernise its attractions, the decision was made to retire Gran Slammer. In its place, Knott's installed a new flat ride, La Revolution, which opened later in 2003. The newer attraction brought a more extreme spinning and swinging motion to the area. When Knott's Berry Farm introduced its new boardwalk area in 1996, it marked a shift in theme and atmosphere. Replacing the former Roaring Twenties section, the boardwalk paid tribute to the classic coastal culture of Southern California, embracing the vibrant energy of sun, surf and seaside fun. As part of this transformation, Hammerhead, a towering spinning thrill ride, made its debut. Located in an elevated position above the boardwalk's mermaid fountain, Hammerhead was a Zamperla roto shake, an unusual and intense flat ride that pushed the limits of what guests expected from a spinning attraction. It featured a large central arm with a 3-row gondola platform at the end. The platform held 42 riders in total, arranged in 3 rows of seats. As the ride began, the main arm lifted the gondola high into the air, then the chaos commenced. Hammerhead flipped, spun and twisted riders in all directions. As the arm rotated, the gondola itself spun on a separate axis, inverting riders repeatedly. With each pass, guests found themselves head over heels, unsure of where they were going. The result was a disorienting, high-intensity experience. Visually, Hammerhead was unmistakable. Its seaside theme fit perfectly within the boardwalk's colourful motif. The ride was painted in vibrant blue tones and featured playful seaside elements, including a starfish centrepiece and shell details adorning either side of the gondola. It was visually striking, with guests often stopping to watch it in action. Despite bringing motion to the new area, Hammerhead's time at Knott's was relatively brief. Beneath the dynamic motion was a notoriously high-maintenance machine. The intricate mechanics and constant rotational stress led to frequent breakdowns and expensive repairs. By the end of the 2003 season, the cost of keeping it running had become too great. Hammerhead was removed that year and replaced by Riptide, a more reliable and proven ride type. Though it only lasted 7 years, Hammerhead left a distinctive impression on those who braved it. Its striking presence made it one of the most memorable attractions in Knott's history. In the fall of 1986, Knott's Berry Farm closed one of its most beloved attractions, Knott's Berry Tales. This charming, whimsical dark ride had entertained guests for over a decade, but park leadership felt it was time for something new. As the late 1980s ushered in a worldwide fascination with dinosaurs, Knott's decided to capitalise on the trend with a completely reimagined dark ride experience. On Memorial Day 1987, Kingdom of the Dinosaurs officially opened. Built on the foundation of Knott's Berry Tales, the new attraction kept the original continuously loading ride system, but updated it extensively. Guests still boarded the familiar trolleys, now redesigned to resemble 1920s-style time machines, and began their journey in the bustling streets of roaring Los Angeles. Taking a wrong turn, trolleys entered the workshop of the eccentric Professor Wells, whose latest invention, a time machine, would send riders back to a prehistoric world. Passing through the shimmering time tunnel, guests emerged in a land lost to time. The journey took them through several distinct prehistoric eras, including the Ice Age, the Triassic period, and the Cretaceous. The riders encountered more than 24 animatronic figures along their way, from towering dinosaurs to snarling saber-toothed cats, all set against immersive backdrops. The atmosphere was more educational and exploratory than thrilling, giving guests a slow-moving tour of Earth's distant past. In its early years, Kingdom of the Dinosaurs operated smoothly with its continuous load system. However, later modifications changed the ride's operation significantly. The trolleys were reconfigured into 3 long trains, and rather than continuously moving through the station, the entire system had to come to a stop, each time guests loaded and unloaded. The attraction remained a nostalgic favourite for many through the 1990s, but as tastes shifted towards faster-paced thrill rides, Kingdom of the Dinosaurs began to feel dated. In 2004, the ride officially closed. Cedar Fair, which had recently acquired Knott's, was heavily investing in new coasters and thrill rides, transforming the park's identity away from its more family-focused roots. After its closure, the building that once housed Kingdom of the Dinosaurs sat abandoned for nearly a decade. Some of the props and animatronic figures were salvaged by park employees, while the rest of the sets quietly deteriorated behind closed doors. It wasn't until 2014 that visible work began to transform the space into a new attraction. In 2015, the space reopened as Voyage to the Iron Reef, a modern interactive dark ride that featured an underwater steampunk theme and new ride vehicles. Though it breathed new life into the ageing show building, Voyage to the Iron Reef only lasted a few years. It closed in 2020 to make way for a highly anticipated revival. Knott's Berry Tales returned to the fair, a tribute to the original dark ride that had once charmed guests decades earlier. In the early 2000s, Knott's Berry Farm was no stranger to installing thrill rides, and in 2004 they became the very first park in the world to debut an innovative new attraction from S&S Worldwide, the Scremin Swing. Installed close to Calico Mine Ride, Scremin Swing replaced the short-lived VertiGo ride and officially opened to the public on September 30th, 2004. Standing over 60 feet tall, this towering air-powered swing ride used compressed air to launch riders up to 70 feet into the sky at a top speed of 60 miles per hour. The original version at Knott featured 2 arms, each holding 4 passengers back to back, for a total of 8 riders per cycle. During its roughly 50-second ride cycle, the swing arms operated simultaneously, but in opposite directions, giving riders a high-speed pendulum-like thrill that delivered smooth airtime and the feeling of flight. Unlike most of Knott's major attractions, Scremin Swing was an upcharge ride, requiring an additional $5 per ride. While the attraction's low capacity often meant longer waits, the rush delivered by the compressed air launches made it a must-try for many thrill seekers. Visually, the ride was a standout in the park. Its A-frame support structure towered over guests strolling through the area, while the sight of swinging arms launching riders high into the sky brought plenty of onlookers. After more than a decade in operation, Scremin Swing was closed quietly in 2015. Its departure was part of a shift in focus toward live entertainment offerings at the park. The ride's former footprint was redeveloped into the Calico Mine Stage, an outdoor venue that would host seasonal shows and live performances, especially during Knott's popular seasonal events like Summer Nights and the Boysenberry Festival. Scremin Swing may not have lasted long in the grand timeline of Knott's Berry Farm, but its status as the world's first installation of its ride type made it a distinct chapter in the park's story. By the early 2000s, Knott's Berry Farm was continuing to evolve its boardwalk area, building on its coastal theming. In December 2003, the park announced that it would replace the troubled Hammerhead. Opening on June 26, 2004, Riptide brought a new level of intensity to the boardwalk lineup. Manufactured by Huss, Riptide was the company's newest variant of the topspin, one of its most popular and widely installed thrill rides. Unlike earlier versions, this suspended model featured a single gondola seating 38 passengers in 2 back-to-back rows. Riders dangled with their legs free as the gondola spun on a central axis between 2 towering 20-metre arms. Knott leaned heavily into the boardwalk's California surf theme when designing Riptide. The ride's structure was decorated in vibrant shades of yellow, orange and blue, and flanked by stylised surfboards. Most topspins came with a single interactive fountain, but Knott's installed 2. As Riptide rotated, the gondola would sometimes dip low enough to splash through the fountains, or stop just above them to soak riders. The result was a ride as entertaining to watch from the midway as it was to experience. At its peak, Riptide was one of the most thrilling attractions in the park, flipping riders head over heels while the synchronised fountains danced below. And with a cycle that could perform up to 4 consecutive full flips, it packed a serious punch. However, as the years went on, Riptide began to struggle with reliability. By the mid-2010s, it was plagued by frequent downtime. Reports suggested that the ride only had been operating with around 25% uptime for several years. Despite efforts to refurbish and relaunch it, including months of maintenance and testing, the ride would break down again just weeks after reopening. Finally, in 2016, Knott's made the difficult decision to retire the attraction. After the removal of Boomerang in 2017, the area that once housed Riptide became home to a new roller coaster. The ride's former footprint was repurposed for the station of Hang Time that opened in 2018. In the mid-1990s, Knott's Berry Farm sought to distinguish itself from an increasingly thrill-focused theme park landscape. The result was one of the park's most unique and ambitious attractions, Mystery Lodge. Opening in May 1994, this multimedia theatre experience was based on a show originally developed for Expo 86 in Vancouver, Canada. While it never reached the popularity of the park's roller coasters, Mystery Lodge stood out for its deeply atmospheric storytelling and cutting-edge special effects. From the moment guests entered the queue, Mystery Lodge set a different tone. Visitors walked past waterfalls, rockwork, and Northwest Coast-style totem poles. Eventually, guests reached a pre-show area, designed to resemble the entrance to a Native American longhouse, just as twilight began over the simulated sky. Inside the main theatre, the scene was deceptively simple. Guests faced a large glass panel behind which sat an elder Native American storyteller in a sparsely decorated longhouse, surrounded by glowing firelight. As the smoke from the fire rose and twisted, it took on mystical shapes, prompting the storyteller to recall his life's memories, stories of heroes, spirits, and magic. The storyteller didn't just narrate. He reacted to the images in real time. As he reached out, the smoke appeared to respond. The illusions were seamless, allowing the storyteller to transform into a bird at one point during the show. But what truly set Mystery Lodge apart was its unforgettable finale. As the show built towards its emotional climax, the storyteller slowly faded away before guests' eyes. No smoke or sudden distraction. He simply vanished, leaving behind his mask and cane, which remained physically present on stage. The effect, a masterful use of the Pepper's ghost illusion, was mysterious, and for many, it was among the most stunning stage illusions ever used in a theme park. Despite its relatively modest $10 million budget, the attraction was a technological marvel. Critics and guests alike praised the attraction for its emotional depth and cultural sensitivity, although some also noted that its themes leaned into familiar, idealised portrayals of Indigenous life. Mystery Lodge remained in operation for over 2 decades, quietly captivating audiences in the shadow of ever larger thrill rides. In 2019 it closed for refurbishment, but as time went on, it became clear the show would not return. The show building remained intact, with its waterfall facade still operating and the surrounding area largely undisturbed. Montezooma's Revenge was a pioneering roller coaster that became a defining part of Knott's Berry Farm's lineup. Designed by German engineer Werner Stengel and manufactured by Anton Schwarzkopf, the launch shuttle coaster opened to the public on May 21, 1978, bringing its intense compact thrills to the Fiesta Village section of the park. Using Schwarzkopf's signature steel looping design, Montezooma's Revenge departed from the trend of sprawling coaster layouts. Instead, it delivered its thrills in a linear shuttle format, the train travelling forward and backward through a single vertical loop and 2 towering spikes at either end of the track. At just 800 feet in length, the ride proved that great thrills could be achieved with a compact footprint. What truly set Montezooma's Revenge apart was its innovative launch system. Earlier versions of the Schwarzkopf shuttle loop coasters relied on a weight drop mechanism for acceleration, but Knott's opted for a more advanced flywheel launch system. Positioned just outside the station, a 7.6-ton spinning flywheel could connect to a clutch and cable system attached to a small 4-wheeled catch car. A launch pin slotted into the back of the train, and once the system was engaged, the train would be hurled forward from 0 to 55 miles per hour in just 4.5 seconds. Riders were immediately pulled through a 76-foot vertical loop before ascending a 148-foot spike at the end of the track. The train would then stall briefly, reverse course, pass through the loop again, this time backwards, and travel through the station to climb a second 112-foot rear spike. Here, riders often experienced the ride's most intense airtime before returning to the station slowed by brakes. Montezooma's Revenge was notable for its minimal restraint system. For many years, only a lap bar held riders in place, without over-the-shoulder restraints. Though Cedar Fair, after acquiring the park in 1997, later added seatbelts as an extra safety measure. The ride's appearance also changed with time. When the Jaguar coaster was added in 1995, its track was built directly through the centre of Montezooma's loop, creating a unique visual moment for both rides. In early 2022, Knott's Berry Farm closed Montezooma's Revenge for a planned refurbishment that would include a new launch system and reimagined theming. This marked the end of the original Schwarzkopf-designed flywheel launch, a mechanical system that had propelled riders forward for over 4 decades. Long before linear induction motors and hydraulic launches became the industry standard, Montezooma's Revenge delivered a powerful and unforgettable acceleration using pure mechanical force. For this, the original ride will be remembered as a landmark in launch coaster history. Each of these attractions represents a different chapter in the history of Knott's Berry Farm. Though they are now gone, their impact remains, shaping the park's identity, influencing what came next, and leaving behind a legacy still remembered by those who experienced them.